right, I think we can get started now. I think everybody's here. Anybody know of anybody coming that's not here? All right. So we always start off with introductions. I'm Roger Rayle, Chair of CARD and Chair of SIO Residents for Safe Water. And this month marks the end of this month. I'll be beginning my 27th year watching over this as a citizen volunteer. And can't do this for another 27 years. So it's going to be up to all of you people to fill the void with some kind of entity that can carry this on for as long as it needs to. And I'm not liking what I see in the last couple of years toward that end. And I'm really looking at all the government entities to come together and do this right. We're on our way, but it's a slog. So that's my introduction.
I'm Shauna Milkey, Ann Arbor resident and secretary for CARD. There's agendas up here. Feel free to come up and get one. And also there's a sign-in sheet. If you could please sign in before you leave, that would be great. Thanks.
Pass it around.
Mike Moran, Ann Arbor Township Supervisor, Vice Chair of CARD.
Vince Crusoe, a board member of CARD and coordinating member for the Allen Street Watershed Group.
Dana Wilkinson, I just started working with the University of Michigan, just here to observe.
Kathleen McDonald with the University of Michigan. I work with our Environment, Health, and Safety Department.
Jim Schultz, CARD member, concerned citizen.
Jack Eaton, I'm an Ann Arbor City Council member.
Beth Collins, CARD member, concerned citizen.
Jim Crow for the SIO citizen.
Bob Bailey, a SIO resident.
Jessica Stiles, EGLE.
George Buckmaster, EGLE Water Resources Division.
Hi everyone, I'm Jimena Loveluck. I'm the incoming health officer as of September 1st after Ellen Rabinowitz retires. I've been the deputy health officer for the last 2 years.
Brian Nagel, I'm Assistant AG assigned to this case.
Joe Trinan, Jackson District Supervisor for EGLE.
Sarah Nudrich, I'm the District Enforcement Coordinator for the Remediation Redevelopment Division of EGLE.
Dan Hamill, I'm the Gelman Project Manager for EGLE, and I'm in the Jackson District Office.
Jenny Kahn, Public Health Engineer for the Washtenaw County Health Department.
Hi, Rowan. I'm Kevin Lund. I work for EGLE. I'm an engineer.
Hi there, Kristen Schweighoefer. I'm the Environmental Health Director with the Washtenaw County Health Department.
Rita Locke Caruso, I'm Professor of Toxicology, University of Michigan, and a member of CARD.
Harry McCall with Tetra Tech.
Jared Mulder with Tetra Tech.
Ryan Stedwitz, City of Ann Arbor.
Spencer Weaver, Fourth View.
Dylan Thomas, Fourth Media as well.
Katie Justitis, Congresswoman Dingle's office.
Bryce Kelly, Scioto Township Manager.
Marcia Haddock, Scioto Township resident.
All right. Thanks everybody for coming.
Right, the next item is for the board to vote on. I move that we approve the minutes from the July meeting. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Okay, we'll move right into the EGLE, formerly called the EQ updates.
Okay. The first item on there is I'm the residential well 2019 confirmation sampling. We had the residential well sampling, the spring and event occur. We had some positive detections, a positive detection for a couple, a new one along Elizabeth on the north side of the property, and a new one out to the west at the 4709 Breezewood. We had sampled out that way in 2014, and we got a positive detection out there at 1 ppb. So what I'm going to do, what I'm doing is going back and sampling again out at those locations to do a confirmation that the 1 ppb is confirmed that because it's at that low detection that confirmed that it is present, was not an anomaly. I will be sampling out at the Breezewood. Oh, we also had some detections of not one for dioxane, but on Liberty we had some other I had done some full scan VOC analysis of all the other organics analysis, and we got some detections there right at 4340 Liberty, and I'm going back there and doing the same. Dioxane was not detected along Liberty, but the organics were, other organics were detected. Yes?
To help orient us, could you give us a near intersection
Okay.
for that address? I don't really know where 403.
Which, the Liberty, yeah, the Liberty.
Oh, okay, I think Roger may have found it.
Yeah.
4340.
Yeah. That group right there. We'll be sampling a couple of the wells, resampling them ones there for, to confirm the other organics.
It's on the north side of Liberty.
Yep.
We don't have township property information for that location. We don't have well location.
There's 2 rentals on the same parcel.
I'll be sampling those rentals tomorrow. And then we'll also be working to sample a couple of the other wells that Jenny and I have agreed to go back and sample.
Yeah, we don't have the right parcel information for that.
But like I said, the dioxane was not detected there. It was some of the tetrahydrofuran and another organic. So that's what I'm going to. I'll also run it for dioxane again too, since I'm there, and kind of a resampling, just a confirmation sampling.
But again, that's not the 522 method, right?
No, we're not using the 522 yet. Well, the VOC, the other VOC wouldn't be 522 anyways. It would be the 8260, but for dioxane, we're not doing that yet. And then the Breezewood.
I have a question about that last site. Do you have any idea where that's coming from? Those organics?
No, I mean, not yet. We had a positive detection right at the reporting limit, and we're going back to confirm and start gathering lines of evidence to to see if we.
Do you remember what the well depth was? Just a guess. I mean, just a ballpark.
If I might have that quickly. Remember what was I do not remember, I guess, on Liberty. I have to go look it back up.
Probably like 100 feet or?
I don't want to even, state something without some information.
I want to say it was 107 feet.
About 100.
So I was thinking over 100.
Okay. Thanks.
I just don't have the Liberty data right here. And then up at Breezewood Court at 4709, that's a 51-foot well, and that did have a 1 ppb detection of dioxane. I'm going back there and grabbing that sample again. I'm also working on grabbing a sample at 359 West Delhi. It's under the resident or the property's under construction, and we were not able to gather a sample there in the spring because it's under construction and they didn't have the well set up. So I'm going to try to go ahead and do that because that is another shallow well there, 52 feet. So I'm going to, and it's to the southeast of the positive detection. The other wells in that area are 90 to 150 foot deep. So the 51-foot depth is a shallow well, shallow residential well in that area. So that, again, that's what planned. I'm going to be sampling that tomorrow. With meeting with the homeowner and go ahead and sample that location as a confirmation sampling.
Can I just ask now, since this hasn't happened since I've been coming to CARD, what goes on now with the count? I mean, these people, do they stop drinking their water? Do they?
The 1 ppb is below the current criteria of 7.2. So
does it start showing an upward trend? You make them stop, or
there'll be a point that we would recommend and start providing bottled water. That has happened, this has happened at the Gelman site historically, where the DEQ, at a certain concentration. If you remember, well, right now, even under the current consent judgment, the criteria in the court is 85 ppb.
Not 7.2.
It was changed to 7.2 in the environmental law, and we're negotiating to change that in the court. But we will be utilizing the 7.2 as the active current criteria with any evaluation for risk at a residential well. So it's at 1 ppb. It's a new detection there, and we will, keep sampling that.
Because my neighborhood, like, we weren't even supposed to shower in it. We had to go to Weber's, Westover Hills. And much higher concentrations.
Right, you're on the east side of
Wagner.
Yeah.
But I just didn't know, like, are we planning? I mean, whose water will they tie into? It's not the city of Ann Arbor. What then happens? How do they get onto other water sources?
That,
You're not
be
thinking
speculation,
that
it's
far.
not,
Okay.
right.
We're not, it's not that we're not thinking
Okay.
that far, it's that there are contingency plans of, we'll get them immediately on bottled water. We
Right.
don't want to wait to drill a new aquifer or drill to a new aquifer that maybe isn't contaminated or run city water. But, right, that's why we're sampling and in that case, increasing sampling frequency so that we can keep an eye on trends.
I'll say-
Historically, on
I'm sorry.
Elizabeth Road, we haven't seen an upward trend, but we do sample it 2 times a year. Over the last, I'm not sure how many years, like decade and a half or so. Yeah, probably for longer than that, but just in more recent memory. So these are certainly interesting because they're new detections.
Right.
And that's why we're increasing our sampling frequency, doing confirmation sampling, and doing some of those actions because we realize it will take time to get them a permanent
Other
what-
source.
if-
But you're
if
not
it's
using
7.2.
method 522, which could detect below 1 part per billion.
That is correct.
So resampling at this location and finding that it's non-detect doesn't tell you whether it's 0.2 parts per billion or 0.9 parts per
Correct, it
billion.
would tell us that it was
So
under
the
1 part
people
per
that
billion.
living there can say, well, we don't know what's happening. So if you really want to find out how the dioxane is moving and where it's going around the peripheral, you really have to use method 522 like the city uses.
But we could charge Gelman for that. It's not like the state of Michigan should pay for that. We have a responsible party, and they should be covering these costs. And I think if we're looking at 7.2, that's a lot lower than 85. And I think we need to adjust our testing based on that lower number. Because jumping from non-detect to 1 at a 7.2 standard is a pretty significant issue for the county, the township, and the homeowner. And I agree with Roger. I think we should require the more expensive but better test method.
It's not necessarily more expensive.
Well, then why aren't we doing it?
The EGLE lab is not set up to
Certified.
do that,
But
that
there are-
method.
there are labs that do.
Like I said,
Again,
gathering.
we understand this concern, it's been voiced before, we're in current discussions on things, as we know, and again, it's noted again on tape, and hopefully in the minutes.
Yeah, but it's always being noted, it's not, and if we were
We're
New
in
Hampshire
negotiations,
or
Roger.
Massachusetts or someplace like that,
Okay.
you'd
The
be
level is still
0.35 parts
85.
per billion
The
that
level's
you got
still
cleaned up to,
85,
and you're not
Roger.
even thinking about that possibility. Another 10 years, maybe they'll find, hey, we better tighten it even more, and you won't be ready for it.
We'll be ready if people need water.
Yeah, but you're not testing to see even where it is at
The level, even
less than 1 part.
protective health level is 7.2, it's at 1,
Yeah, but it's not applied to the site yet,
applied to what site?
to the government site.
Our responsiveness will be at 7.2, we've said that. We're not holding ourselves to 85, that's what Gelman's held to.
Yeah, but you're not requiring them to even produce maps at 7.2.
Because it's not their.
Exactly,
it's not-
they're
we're
calling the shots
negotiating
on
it
this,
still.
instead of the state and the local units calling the shots.
I know, we're in negotiations on all that, rather.
How many more years?
I have no idea.
Right. I mean, this is getting tiresome.
You guys
Anyway,
have
go ahead
voiced the
with your-
concerns,
Go ahead with
elected
your,
officials
We have
have
EGLE
passed along
continue
this
their update,
information
please.
multiple times, we know.
Can you go continue
Go
your
ahead, Dan.
update and talk about this in the discussion part?
I'm sorry?
I'd like to have EGLE continue their update as part of.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, where was I?
Re-split.
Like I said, I'm
Re-sample.
resampling some of the locations. The Elizabeth Drive, Elizabeth Road will be done by Jenny, by the Washtenaw County in the fall, in September. They're going out there for they sample that location, those locations out there twice a year. So rather than me going back right now for a confirmation on the new detection on north side of Elizabeth, we're just going to go ahead and she's going to include that in the second round of sampling that's scheduled out there in September. So like I said, I will be doing the other locations that are new, and the confirmation, I will be using the EGLE lab right now. It will not be method 522 at this point in time. And I will update the group when I receive that information and see where we go from there. So at the same time, if the next item is surface water sampling, at the same time I'm doing this confirmation sampling, I'm going to go ahead and sample, which we've committed to anyways, sampling surface waters out to the east there, out to Breezewood. I'm going to go ahead and go up along the unnamed trib at the locations that we've done at Park in Jackson, where the unnamed trib crosses. I will do Honey Creek at Dexter. I will do the Honey Creek, a new location up where, not where it goes into the river, but right along the bridge, right along the drive there, whatever that road is right there, yeah.
You're on River Drive.
Yeah, I will be taking a sample, that'll be a new sample this year, right there, out there. And then I will also then take a sample at the, where Gelman collects their bromate sample. At the same, I'll take that sample, and then also down at the single lane bridge down across the
Foster Bridge.
yeah, right there. I will take a sample from there. So I'm going to do it all tomorrow. So it's basically a snapshot of what we have, not only in the shallow groundwater at Breezewood, but also in the surface water. Some of the lines of information have indicated that Honey Creek and the tributary are a gaining and losing surface water stream. And so what that means is in some locations the groundwater recharges into that surface water body, that stream. In other locations the losing part of it, the surface water discharges into the groundwater. So we're going to get a concentration of what's in those what's in the surface water body and in the shallow groundwater at the same snapshot in time. So I will be doing that, like I said, tomorrow, and then be submitting those to our laboratory for analysis. The next item I have there is the Allen Creek drain sampling. We've collected the last of the 6 events in July. I don't have the data back yet. I'm expecting it any day now. And then I will be compiling a summary report for disseminating that information. I will, as I've said before, I'm committed to getting that report posted on our webpage and then sent out in September. So, like I said, I do not have the last of the data, but expecting that any day now. And that report will have a summary tables, it'll have a summary graph, and then a map with the locations. And again, that's just of the Allen Creek drain. There were 7 locations that we came up with Washtenaw County when we started sampling in February. Last event was July, and we'll take a look at the data and see where it takes us. See if we have to do anything else. Yes.
So I mentioned this before, but I just want to reiterate that it would be great for EGLE to come to CARD when they're proposing sampling and get feedback from CARD as to what suggestions we would like to present. When you're doing Allen's Creek testing, I think, you should have come back to the CARD group and run by the group what proposed samples you had to take. And I think, that considering the fact that the CARD group was the group that really got EGLE started on near surface water testing. It wasn't on the radar until we brought it up and pressured DEQ to do those tests. So I think I think it's advisable that you come back to CARD when there's any other proposed tests. And I'm glad you did them, but I think, if in the future, it'd be good for the DEQ or EGLE to come back to the CARD group.
Vince, is there anything specifically that you'd like to see sampled that wasn't, or could you provide that to us?
Well, yeah, I would have
Maybe
suggestions
send
as
something
to,
to EGLE then?
where the test should be, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that'd be great.
You just realized this Allen Creek
Come
drainage
on.
sampling was done in conjunction. We negotiate, if you want to say, talked with Washtenaw County, Evan.
I'm just
Evan
saying
and-
that the
and
CARD
Matt,
group
and
has
so it
been-
wasn't just EGLE,
I know.
based upon some couple suggestions.
But if you have other groups within the county asking you to do tests, I think EGLE should come back to CARD and discuss those proposals and get any suggestions we might be able to add. I think the CARD group is probably as knowledgeable as anybody on this contaminated site, and I think it would be very advisable and desirable to see EGLE come back with proposals to us.
Yeah, and Dan McNell provided his recommendations of where the permanent shallow groundwater sampling should be, and these are the yellow dots here on the map.
Well, just to clarify, these are not near surface water samples. These are samples from the Allen Creek drain.
Right,
Okay.
which may or may not be sampling what's actually in the groundwater near people's basements.
The samples are coming directly from the drain, not from the
Right.
groundwater.
So these stars are where there's wet basements. And here are the RL locations that were done as temporary, one-time sampling.
So
But if the water's moving, we don't know if it's reaching these former sampling locations.
I'm just saying there's separate issues.
So the reason that the Allen Creek drain and West Park was tested was because CARD suggested that as a quick and easy sample. It picks up a lot of groundwater. You did it during the dry spells, which we requested, and that was good. And the fact that it came back as high as 19 part per billion, I think is a surprise to a lot of people. I think we need to stay on top of this because people's homes are at risk on the west side. There's a lot of wet basements. Being in the watershed group, I've talked to people over the last 25 years about very high groundwater and infiltration into basements. And there are a lot of basements that have been replaced, fixed because of the high groundwater undermining the basements. And that's one reason that site at West Park picks up groundwater, was to try and reduce the amount of erosion that occurred due to seeps in that area. And so they have all these stubs going out, picking up groundwater to try and reduce the erosion of the road and the basements. So I think the sample at West Park that you took was probably overwhelmingly groundwater, near surface groundwater. And coming back at 19 part per billion, at least, is very troubling to me, at least.
But we don't know where it's coming from.
We don't know where it's coming from, and the last samples that were collected in the shallow groundwater near West Park were non-detect. There was some low detections in Waterworks Park, but the West Park samples are non-detect. I know those were a few years ago. I agree with you that we'd like permanent shallow groundwater monitoring wells in that area. I just don't want people to confuse the sample from the Allen Creek drain with shallow groundwater in West Park.
Well, I'm telling you that, I know for a fact that the pipe in West Park is designed to pick up groundwater. There are stubs going out from that site, and we can TV it if you want, to look at where those stubs are. I mean, that's doable, it's not that big a deal. Very quick and easy to do if you want. But my information from what I would consider a very reliable source is that there are stubs at that site that are picking up groundwater, and there's seeps all over the area.
From upstream?
Yes.
Yes, not directly from West Park and the shallow groundwater there.
Who has the mapping of all those stubs?
Good question.
They exist in the city's stormwater maps. Is that correct, Brian? I believe. I've seen some.
Well, I have the ground, I
have
have
maps.
the sewer maps for that site.
So these, the maps you're seeing here are from the city website, the KML export, but it doesn't have the stubs.
When you
So the
stand on
city-
top of that, you
That's not
stand on
actual.
top of that site during a drought, there's a tremendous amount of water flowing through there. I mean, it's just like it just rained. The huge amounts of groundwater going into that pipe.
So what I'm suggesting is maybe whoever has the mapping for the stubs should provide that data to CARD so we can add it to the trove of information we have about this site. Because the only way we're going to really know what's going on underground is have the data.
We'll have some permanent wells put in.
Otherwise, it's just all guesswork.
Some of that, I asked about that early on, and some of that stuff is not, like they can't share it.
Right.
We're not supposed to share it with the public
Because it's a risk to,
Yeah, because they're combined with other maps and the, utility maps and things like that, so I'd have to look into that.
no, but I think is the drain layer specifically prohibited from
I don't
being
know.
shared?
I'll have to-
Because it's already shared where the main drain is, we just don't know where
Yeah.
the stubs are.
So we could ask just for that area.
And if it's a health and a safety issue, well, maybe it should be shared so that decision makers will know where are some locations that the dioxane may be showing up in the stubs, going into the stubs, it's showing up at 19 parts per billion or something less than or more than that down in West Park.
I actually went down there when they were doing that, I actually have a picture of it somewhere.
Yeah, but we need to
I
know.
mean, it was like, here I am.
I
The
think,
more information we have, the better analysis we can do.
I think the point is that the data are uninterpretable as they're provided. We don't know what they mean. And so what level of detail can be revealed or not revealed, at least some kind of conclusion should be drawn for us from those who have access to all the information. What does it mean? And we can't come up with an interpretation based on the information provided. So I think we need an interpretation and not just the numbers.
And I think the reason Vince brought it up was because we didn't know about the first testing of Evan and Dan until it had already been done and a plan was formulated. And I think he was saying, well, what about that seep up on that hillside? And what about, it's the Allen Creek, the drain. But I think that was our point, is let's maybe try to work together because, Roger's mapping and, I don't know, Vince's seeps and.
Anyway, let's go back, keep going, Dan.
Okay, like I said, a summer report will be, I'll provide one in September. And we can, I'm sure it'll generate questions then, and we'll see where we go from there. We'll talk about continuation of sampling. I know you said that had been brought up already. But let's get this, summer report and see where it takes us.
You're talking about the quarterly report this summer?
No, I'm not.
Now that the 6 months of the Allen Creek drain sample.
Just that summary, this Allen Creek drain summary report.
Oh, okay, the summary report.
Yeah.
Which I think gets a little bit to Rita's question as well. So we're still in the middle of it, so we haven't.
Well, I'm sure,
data analysis.
it'll be available, and I'm sure this group will critique it, and efficient and quick manner, and we'll continue on with, you know, what questions are still remaining, and if, you know, how and when we can gather that information to answer those questions.
Consider putting in permanent wells.
You know, we are in, you know, internally, we understand that too.
So did you talk, you want to talk about the quarterly report?
That would be my next bullet, right?
Okay.
We have decided to, if a quarterly report relates to the EPA requesting us provide quarterly summary reports during that year of oversight that they were involved with, which ended in May or early in the spring here. And we're going to go ahead and provide that quarterly report, that information, most of the information that was in that quarterly report. We'll continue that on. Now, I call it a quarterly report. I do want to make sure, I will commit to doing that, but as far as exactly on the quarter, like I did for that year, it wasn't exactly on the quarter. A lot of times I had an extra month in there or that type of thing. So we will be providing reports on a quarterly basis, but please don't start saying, hey, you missed, we didn't get a report last month. I'll get the information out, but I don't want to, commit to a date each month, each quarter. So it'll have the same information as the current quarterly report, with some changes. It won't be as much information in there because we're going to use another type of format for certain discussions. So, but we'll continue with that, and in the foreseeable future.
Wait, what did you say about another kind of format for what?
Questions and stuff. There was a lot of the report was the same iteration of questions, concerns, whatever you want to call it. So I'm committing to get the information about what has happened over that quarter, what, some certain data, those types of things. Those questions really was such an ongoing thing with each quarterly report. We're going to do that in a different kind of format. So I can get the quarterly report out without having the same bullet answered, and then that's not good enough, and so we'll have a different format for those types of.
Can you talk about the format?
Well, we're kind of coming up with the final format. What are you thinking, Roger?
Well, I mean, what is it that, what are you providing that requires a different format? That would be better in a different
it's
format?
more of a
like a
just kind of
summary,
matching.
executive summary type thing, or?
It more matches up to what has been provided by EGLE on other sites. It is the same information. We're, like I said, hashing out what will be in there, but really the same bullets are in there. It's just, I guess the format, the front and back pages will be, kind of standardized to what EGLE has been generating for sites for reports.
Can you send us a sample of one of those?
I'll send you, I'll give you a link to where
Right,
a
send a
report
link.
of another site that generates a report like that.
That'd be good.
So Dan, is one coming up? Will you be publishing one soon?
Yeah, I was gonna commit to having something by October 1st.
Okay, great.
So it's not quarter from when we stopped them in May, but I'm calling them the quarterly reports, so.
Perhaps you should come up with a better term for it.
Maybe I should. Then the next item that I have, well, let me get my action items down. Oh, forget it, Roger. Excuse me here.
Well, next on the agenda is the proposed residential well center.
Yeah. As we've always said, that Washtenaw County EGLE each year evaluates the residential well program. It's called the long-term monitoring program for the state of Michigan. It's not just at Gelman. It's at multiple sites that the health department samples for EGLE at multiple sites across the state. We use that long-term monitoring at the Gelman site. What we've come up with this year, like I said, in conjunction, Jenny, Kristen, Washtenaw County, and the technical staff in the Jackson District Office, what we've come up with is a continuation of that program, and because of a lot of the questions we've been getting on who should we sample, what should be sampled, Jenny had suggested, and we agree with it as it stands right now, identifying kind of a buffer to sample residential wells within this buffer zone of 1,000 foot from the estimated plume area for the Gelman plume, for the dioxane plume, and that's to the west of Wagner Road. To the east, we have the Prohibition Zone, so that's to the north and to the west and to the south of Wagner Road there. And so we're going to be using that, at least in the near future, as a identification on what residential wells we will be sampling. So if we get a question of, why not my well, if it's outside that 1,000 foot, at least for now, as we get information, we're going to use that 1,000 foot to identify the area that will be sampled. Within that area, we still may decide to go like we are currently doing some locations, not yearly, but on every 2 years. Some locations will be twice a year, but that 1,000 foot will be the first.
How was the 1,000 foot determined?
It was just an engineering estimate, just a
out of the air,
basically.
So are you saying 1,000 foot from the 1 PPB?
Yes.
Map designation?
Yes.
Because here's 1,000 foot from the 1 PPB map.
Yeah, and
western
then I
area.
did off of the Breezewood detections and Honey Creek.
Yeah, but that's not on the map.
Wasn't that on the map?
No, it's discussion.
Okay, Roger, you lost me here.
If you had applied this to prior sampling, the Breezewood site would not have been included.
So,
You understand what I'm saying?
absolutely.
Maybe 1,000
If you have 1,000 feet from where
Maybe it's
Gelman
not
said
enough.
the boundary was until here, well, actually, this isn't Gelman's, because they don't even do 1 part per billion. This is basically an estimate, like the county and I do. So 1,000 feet from there wouldn't reach to where the Breezewood detection was. So I'm thinking your criteria might have to be expanded a little bit, maybe.
What's the criteria for the
2,000
line we're
feet.
drawing the 1,000 from?
The estimate.
An estimate of what?
Where the 1 part per billion is.
An estimate of where the 1 is?
Yeah.
From whose estimate?
Well, that's it. We don't have official 1 part per billion boundary maps, so we have to guess where they are.
That's a
The
county.
county
That's a
has to
guess
guess.
map? That's a guess line?
SRSW has to guess.
Okay.
The DQ doesn't have any idea. They don't guess. They have
We
to
take
rely on the
lines of
government.
evidence. We came up with 1,000 foot. What we are going to implement is 1,000 foot from our best estimate of where 1 PPB. This year, we now have Breezewood that has 1 PPB.
So it's going to be 1,000 foot from Breezewood now, right?
Potentially, yes. That's,
Right.
and we will, that
It's
1,000.
a good thing we had the Breezewood, otherwise this whole area here would not have been covered.
And, okay, Roger, so if we had been sampling, we have sampled out there, and you do have non-detects,
Oh, sure you do. So we don't know the pathway that dioxane takes to places like Breezewood.
Which is why we're still doing more sampling.
Yeah, but
Your plume outline is old too. We expanded it in 2019 to incorporate MW 139 and 1,000 feet from there, probably incorporated Breezewood.
We also.
Right, but I haven't seen any of those maps, so I can't include it in the national.
It's on Jenny's webpage.
Yeah, but if you share if it's on the county mapping system, you can export the KML and I can put it up so we can use it in discussions like this. Otherwise, we're talking about old information.
This is why we're here updating.
Yeah.
So, I'm just saying, we could tighten up the information flow a little bit, and so everybody can be on the same page when we're discussing this. Otherwise, we're relying on just 2 or 3 people making decisions.
I have a real problem with using homeowners' residential wells as a way of detecting contamination.
We are sampling these wells first and foremost to identify potential risk to someone related to contamination from the Gelman site. So, secondary use of them, yes, if we have a positive detection, it allows us to identify potential plume. But we are sampling these wells. I want to make that clear. We're not using this as a way to, as monitoring wells. We're making sure that people are not going to be drinking dioxane contaminated water at 7.2, the best way we can right now. That may also allow us to push for more monitoring wells in a certain location. Yes, and it also allows us to identify a better estimate of the Gelman plume. Yes, but first and foremost, we're sampling these so we're due with Washtenaw County's input to make sure people are not at risk of drinking water, groundwater out of their wells that is contaminated.
So once again, we're subsidizing Gelman with residential wells that should be done by the responsible party. I don't think residential wells are appropriate use. Right now, just today, we're talking about extending the 1 ppb indicator map. I think that's, jurisdictional. That's has some legal ramifications, and I think that's troublesome that we're using residential wells to do that. So I'm just putting that out there.
I would say adjusting the one has no legal basis, period, at all, none. It's 85.
Wait a minute, we just said today that we're gonna go 1,000 feet from the 1 ppb map.
Yep.
Okay, that's jurisdictional, I'd say.
Sample to make sure. Jurisdictional at all.
I think, you're using it to decide where to do testing. I think that's jurisdictional.
I don't understand what jurisdictional means.
I think it has more standing than just a whimsical, dart thrown at a map. You're using it to decide where you'll do additional testing.
To make sure people
I'm just putting it out there. I know there's a difference of opinion, but I'm just putting it out there. I think it's inappropriate. I think other people have described it.
But it's Gelman's dioxane, right? I mean, we're clear that it's Gelman's dioxane still, wherever it is. They should be the ones putting in more monitoring wells.
The court didn't require them to do that, though.
But the court probably hasn't seen any of this.
For instance, I don't know,
here
to
is,
be honest with you, I mean.
Justin, let me finish. This pink area is, in fact, a Gelman map at 1 part per billion, done in 2015, after 12 years or more of hiatus of drawing maps at 1 part per billion. This is part of the Little Lake study. And if you look at the boundary for this, 1,000 feet away, well, it's more like 1,500 feet away to get to Bracewood. So if you were actually using the, quote, official map that the company provides, you would never have tested Bracewood under this latest criteria you're using.
If we hadn't done any additional testing from 2015 when they drew that map,
right.
You might be right. But we have done additional testing.
And it's good that you did that.
Extended.
It's good that you did that.
But I don't understand what's
it's
the
not
difference
good.
between the 1,000
It's not
feet.
good that you're using taxpayer money to do it.
And not Gelman.
It's not
I don't
good
have
that
that
we're not
ability.
doing
That's
enough
under the
of it.
consent judgment, what I can ask them to do or what I can't.
Exactly.
Ask them to do.
The
Okay, so
consent
you're just
judgment is
saying
flawed.
get it on
Everybody
record.
agrees the consent judgment is flawed.
How's the
So
reason
how do you
why it's
fix
being
that?
negotiated? It's being renegotiated. I don't know what else to tell you.
Negotiation's not working.
How do you know?
Because it's been 2 years. It was supposed to take 1 year.
Exactly. I'm bound by the judge.
Well,
We're all
that's
bound
the
by the
problem.
judge.
There's no end date. It just goes on and on.
I don't have anything to do with that.
Well,
What does our Attorney
That's
General?
Why don't the parties
I
to
can't
the
talk about
consent
it.
judgment put?
I'm not saying more than I'm supposed to.
That's the
anyways.
beauty of being here.
Parties to the consent judgment could put it in.
We have elected
Gelman
officials
loves
at the table. We would like elected officials to
It's
understand
up to you.
the frustration that the community has with the
Understood.
consent judgment.
Jerry,
Understood.
here's the point.
I
to
thought we
make.
were
Here's the
still in
point
the
to make,
EGLE
Jerry.
update area. If we're not in
Maybe
the
I
EGLE
should be
update,
talking
we'll
to
move
the
on, that's
person
fine.
next to you. Maybe I should be talking to the person next to you. because
We were
I
just
think
trying to
that's-
provide an update.
I think that's where the problem is once the lawyers get involved,
But they are, and they have been since the 80s.
well, we
so I
don't
can't
know
give
if
them
they're
out.
using any of this information. And I'm guessing they're not.
You're guessing that they're not using all the information to
That's right.
negotiate.
Like, for instance, this one
And
apartment
we're in the
building.
negotiations too, so we're using data.
But you're, in court, the judge hasn't seen anything like this.
We haven't had to
The
go to
judge
court.
hasn't seen anything.
Yeah,
Exactly. And the prior judge didn't see anything like this.
okay.
So how
And
is
so
you
this
see
is
a
why we're
trend here?
negotiating down to the 7.2 to
Where-
implement that.
Gelman, Paul Danaher has the state tied up in court
No,
and won't
We
let
had
them
it.
out of,
I mean, let's remember, we had an agreement, people weren't happy with it. They intervened, they wanted more. And then we've allowed it, and we've negotiated in good faith, and we continue to. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you during the EGLE update portion of this meeting.
well, we kind of got sidetracked here, but you
I know.
understand the frustration. in that.
Well, absolutely.
Well, we have, yeah.
You're making
Again, we're
decisions.
just as frustrated too, we're still negotiating.
You're making decisions on behalf of the people, and you're not incorporating a lot of what the CARD members have.
I disagree with that.
I would
I
disagree.
disagree with that
I
100%.
vehemently disagree with it.
Yep.
I hope the
But you don't
press
know,
gets
you
this.
don't know.
We come in here, we're at these meetings, we're taking the feedback.
Yeah, but
But nothing's happened.
we're not seeing a whole lot of effectiveness from the feedback.
No, and you won't because it's a closed negotiation. And that's
Exactly.
frustrating for all of us.
Exactly.
You guys have been saying that from the beginning though, we've acknowledged it. So I don't know why this is relevant to the EGLE
Why would we
update
not,
portion of the meeting.
to then try to get the EPA involved, like from people that are pushing, maybe you could help to try to go the next step then?
Well, they can't, the staff can't.
Well,
I'm giving my personal.
I know, but
Attorney General said.
as a resident, you could, as a,
Now, you have to understand.
If you want me as a resident, I want EPA more near us. but
You have to understand that there are elected officials in this room. And it's important for them to understand.
I agree, but not during the EGLE update portion of this meeting.
Well-
If you want to use your time, you can.
Yeah.
I have 45 minutes to get our update in.
Yeah,
And we
well-
consistently have to stop and wait while we re-talk about things that could be brought up during your portions of the meeting.
Well,
I want to make this a fruitful meeting. We've heard these, we've written them down, we have notes saying what you want, we know. We can't tell you more, we've told you we can't tell you more.
We're asking about, we're discussing residential wells
Well,
using.
that's not where we are
Okay,
now.
well,
Well, let's
we
move
were.
on, facilitate the meeting and let's
Yeah.
get to the
Yeah.
agenda.
Well, we're covering the items
Vince,
as they come
we're
up.
gonna let them continue because
That's fine.
they're
Go ahead.
taking notes. And we have written documentation, we have video documentation of what's being said.
Thank you, Roger, for doing it.
So
Thank you.
let's continue on, Dan, with your,
So next year, what we have proposed is approximately 190 and 91 plus sampling locations. And that all, we're going to be going back up to north on Wagner there, at Elizabeth Road, the north and south, along Dexter Road there, the purple there, the green and purple, up along the brown. Up
Rose
there.
Drive area.
Rose Drive area is going for next year too. And then out to the west, we will go back into where the Breezewood is, that area there, and then across Honey Creek into the area that we had last sampled in 2014. So there'll be sampling out there within that 1,000-foot buffer as it starts. And there's some wells that we've done in 2014 that may be outside that buffer, but we're going to use that buffer currently and go ahead and sample out that location. Then it also then includes south on Wagner, just south of the property along Lake, what is that? Lakeview Drive there is also going to be included.
just
And
outside the prohibition zone, right?
yeah, and then we, within the plume area along Jackson. That's done every year, so that will also be included. So, as a comparison, we did approximately 110 samples this year. We're going to be at 190 next year. That will start in the spring, March, April time frame, and then that'll go through September. Fiscal year ends October 1st. So that's what we're planning. It'll be the same as this year. We will be doing dioxane at all the locations, and I'm sure selective locations, depending on what the final information or final evaluation is. We may be doing selective additional VOCs, because we have information. Hey, we need to, continue.
And you did this last year too.
Yes, we did last year. We did last year. We did some of the locations had that extra VOC analysis, full scan VOC analysis. Some of them had semi-volatile analysis. Again, we chose between Jenny, Washtenaw County, the technical people of Washtenaw County, and the EGLE. We chose locations, key locations based upon the information.
So which database did those samples go into at the DEQ, at the EGLE?
Well, I'll get them into mine
Because they're not in there now.
Yeah, Roger, they're not in there because it takes a long time to individually put all those samples in.
It would take a long time to do it individually. I would never do that.
Well,
I would do it in batch.
Well, yeah, you do it in batch. You're looking at a non-database person, and I'm the one that has to do it. So it's slow for me with all the other responsibilities.
Well, let's get you some help. Because you shouldn't be spending your time individually transferring data from paper.
I would love to have help.
From workload issue, I'll just give you the paper then, Roger.
You should not be using paper at this point.
We get what we get. And we have to manipulate it into a data set that
Somebody's writing that information on a piece of paper.
Well, we get the
paper.
Gelman data, any Gelman data, we get that electronically.
Right, but this is not Gelman data.
This is from our lab, and there is a little speed bump getting it electronically efficiently.
So you're saying all of the sampling that's being done here around these boxes is on paper?
No, Roger, it's electronic, but it's a different data set, database. It's in our
Okay, so let's,
modern data program.
is there anybody in the room that can help the DEQ?
No, you can't help.
Convert from one database to another.
We don't need help. We
access-
share the data that's necessary to be shared immediately.
The access database that I'm using
If
is
someone
very
has a detection, we
and
let them know.
it's structured that you have to put a sampling location, which i.e. a residential well location, individually. You have to go into the program and put all the components in, X, Y, all that stuff is individually, and.
But that exists electronically somewhere. Right, Jenny? The well data exists somewhere.
What do you mean by electronically?
Well, they have electronic locations of where the wells are, because I see it on maps.
Yeah, that
I
has
see
been
it on the
typed
county
into a
maps.
database by hand
We typed it,
from a paper well log sheet that was.
So it's electronic now.
No.
We put it into an electronic format. from
Right, so
yeah.
it's an electronic format.
Right, but how is that any different than what
I'm
Dan was
doing.
Well, he could use that data instead of having to type it in.
About the
I think
sample results.
Let's just say, right now, until me getting it into the database on a number of wells like this, it takes me a couple of months. And then it'll be in there. Once it's in there once, then it's electronic for all the data after that for the actual well results. It's easy. So.
But if there's a new location, you're gonna have to do that again.
There's a new location, like a new monitoring well, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just telling you, that's very backwards. That's very last century.
I do not disagree with you, Roger. I would love to be able to, you're looking at.
Meanwhile, we're looking at
two-finger
images
database person,
that's-
and that's just the way it is right now.
We can't even, in a discussion group like this, we can't even bring up the information.
What information do you want to see?
I wanna see where all the sample points were.
Dan can point each one out to you then.
And then I wanna
If it's that important,
see
we can give it to you.
in electronic form that I can just plop in here and have
Yeah, I
something
know.
like this
It
show
would
up.
be awesome if everything we did was electronic and directly place them in your database. It'd be awesome, but it's not. I mean, you got paper logs, they have to be committed digitally. They cannot be added to a database.
Some of those logs are like 1950, so if we have them, just having them is a win.
This is a win.
Yeah, but there may be data that's missing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
I guarantee that.
But I don't see a whole lot of effort to fill in that missing data.
We're really focused on renegotiating and further clarifying that people.
Well, I'm not saying it's all up to you guys. I'm saying there's other people in the room here that can help fill that in. And I'm not seeing a lot of cooperation to do that. First of all, I'm not seeing it from the Eagles' point of view. I'm not seeing a lot of receptiveness to even use that data if it was available. Because you
You're
don't have
saying
the
that we'll have data
expertise
that we're not
in-house.
using? That's what your statement now is, that we're collecting data that we're not going to use?
No,
We're
no,
just
that
collecting
you
it to
would
collect it?
not accept electronic data because it's hard to incorporate.
Electronic data.
Roger,
I have no idea what you're talking
you
about.
provide something, we'll try to get it
Yeah,
in. if
tell
you-
us
That's what I want to hear. Okay, let's go on.
Please.
Well, that's, like I said, that's a 2020. That's what we've come up with that. We will then take a look at the evaluate that the residential well long-term monitoring program is reevaluated for the government site every year between Washtenaw County and the Eagle staff. So we could, like I said, in years past, we said, hey, we'll do that every 2 years rather than every year. Currently, one of the reasons we did that is because it is being, as you pointed out, Vince, is being paid for by state funds.
Yeah.
So if we don't, but next year, because of some new positive detections, we're going to go back and sample where we may have skipped a year. We're going to go back and sample and see what next year gives us.
And for the residents who are concerned because there are new detections, so just so you know, we've now increased the North Side Elizabeth to semi-annual instead of the previous annual, and then Dexter and Arbor Road, who's every other year, is now annual. So we do take those things into account when we decide to the sampling.
That was, and again, we will be using, so you understand, 1,000-foot buffer from our best estimate of the 1 ppb plume area when it crosses over.
So who's 1 ppb boundary are you using?
It's the best of all the minds that Washtenaw County and Eagle can put together.
Basically, the county map right now.
The county map is the best representation. With the little add-ons, she's already updated it with the little
Some
add-ons
updates.
of Breezewood and Honey Creek, and realizing there's positive detections in Honey Creek.
So I did a 1,000-foot buffer from Honey Creek, so I tried to be conservative.
Yes.
It's not like I really hugged that.
Is that map
Because
on-
again, that's arbitrary, that's our best guess.
Is that map online now? The
The
updated-
1,000-foot buffer.
No,
was
this,
it-
the
With
updated,
MW 139 it is, with the
So you're up-
Breezewood detection.
There is an updated version of her map that I haven't loaded, because this is as of 2018.
okay, good.
As a substitute volunteer, I don't do this monthly. I only do it once a year.
I also.
Well, no, I'm glad that it's getting updated in case homeowners want a current information as to where the 1 ppb zone is.
It's
Theoretical.
it's not exportable. It's
a PDF.
It's a PDF.
For right now, on their webpage. Yeah.
So what I have to do is I take it and I orient it on Google Earth, and then I half-tone the layer so you can see through it.
Again, that sampling will start next spring, in March, let's say March.
All right, let's what's next on that?
The next is, if they're still here and haven't run out of the permit, is I've asked, and they have graciously accepted, the water resources people that are reviewing the NPDES, Gelman Pall NPDES renewal, permit renewal request. And I've asked them to give an update of where they are, and as they did last time, so. Tarek and Jessica are the people I'm working with.
I'm Jared Buckmaster with the permit section. We're doing a review for the NPDES permit application. And as we discussed discussed at the last meeting, Paul submitted their application this last April, and at that time, we had just received the application but had not reviewed it. Since the last meeting, we've reviewed the application and we've started the initial reviews from the biologists on the data and the water quality information in the application and what has been discharged from the facility over the last 5 years. So, as I said before, we're currently working in a fiscal year status process of reissuance, and we're working on the applications we received last April. So we did continue working on last year's permits through the end of September when we start to shift over to the current year's applications. So we are prioritizing the reissuance of this permit. So we've already started the reviews, and we're still on track for targeting to having a draft permit in fall. So we really don't have much of other, additional information for an update on that, but we are doing the reviews right now and working that in with the current workload, and our expectations are that we'll have something by the fall.
Any numbers to provide?
No, don't have any numbers yet. The biologists are still doing their field work, their summer field work, so whenever they have some extra time, she's doing her reviews, but she has not developed draft numbers yet. Yes.
Have the standards for this permit changed in the last 3 years at all? Are they going to pretty much have to meet the same standard they did in the last review?
The last permit was primarily based on the treatment technology numbers, and our expectation is that there might be with the change in the water quality numbers, there might be a greater concern with the water quality. So we're still doing that evaluation. We're not sure what is going to be the driver for the limits in this permit yet.
So are you going to use 7.2 as a criteria for their permit?
We're still evaluating that.
Okay.
So we don't know what that is going to be based on yet.
When will that get decided?
When we have the draft permit.
Yeah.
When we make
So
those determinations.
who's working on the 7.2 evaluation in the state? Which group does that?
So we have biologists in our permit section that do the reviews. They work with our surface water assessment section, which sets the standards. So it's just a biological review, and then we do draft the permit, and we do consider the treatment technology basis, the water quality basis, any other considerations when we do develop.
So do you contact EGLE to get their feedback on the 7.2 standard?
Well, in Water Resource Division, we have our own standards.
Okay.
So, we do that evaluation with our water quality standards and the treatment technology basis.
What's your standard right now for a 1,4-dioxane? 85?
It's,
You're
He's talking about
using
treatment.
drinking water numbers into their program, and it's a little bit different.
Well, this is
Surface
Michigan.
water numbers 280.
But it's changed in
Human
last March,
contact.
Rule 50s, yes.
280.
So there's the 7.2 and the 85, you gotta watch how you use
Those are
that.
drinking water
Those are
numbers.
drinking
He's
water.
asking about the surface water
Right.
numbers.
yeah, they have reevaluated the surface water numbers, and we're not sure how that's going to have an impact on this discharge permit.
This is Michigan, where near-surface groundwater and even deeper, groundwater are routinely used for drinking water. So you can't separate surface water and groundwater, just out of the blue. You have to make sure that you're not impacting homeowners with wells or the city of Ann Arbor's Barton Pond. So I'm sure that's going to be an issue, and you'll hopefully keep that, connected. That, this is Michigan, a lot of groundwater, a lot of surface water. There's a lot of combinations going on all the time. Honey Creek is giving and receiving. So
Yeah, we're aware of that, and that's going to be part of the review, the consideration of that.
Shannon?
Yeah, when would the public comment period happen? That after the draft permit is issued?
So we develop a draft permit, and we send it to the committee for their consideration. And once we've finalized our review with the committee, then when we're ready and prepared to present it to the public, then we put in a public notice for 30 days. So that's when it's published and put forward for public comment review.
30 days of notice or 30 days of comment?
It's 30 days of comment window, so we put it out on public notice for a 30-day period. Comments can be submitted at any point during that 30-day period.
And you will send it to the card list?
Yes.
That works, EQ, that EGLE uses for the month. All right, let's go on.
Okay, but there was gonna be a public meeting as well for this permit?
Depending on what the situation is, sometimes we'll put a permit on public notice, see if we receive a significant request for a public meeting, and then schedule a public meeting. Sometimes we schedule a public meeting concurrently with the public notice, anticipating that there's going to be a significant response. So we haven't decided yet what we're going to do.
The latter.
Yeah, I guess from the community's perspective, suggest or ask if possible to have the public meeting.
It does save a step by just, public noticing the concurrent.
So when we make comment, it'd be worthwhile to state we'd like to see a public meeting.
Yes.
And that would have some standing.
Yep, if there's a significant response requesting a public meeting.
Well, I can just warn you right now.
Yeah.
Just plan on a public meeting.
Yeah, so we'll,
The
more
one
likely
time
we'll
when
public
the-
notice, when we send out the public notice, we'll also include a notification that we'll be holding a public meeting.
The one time that I think that the state didn't plan for a public meeting, there was consternation. So you can avoid that by just planning for it. All right. Anything else, Dan?
Oh, that's it?
Kristen, one for dioxane community engagement.
Yeah, thanks.
Survey.
I just wanted to update the group. I'm still in contact with Simone Charles, who's works for the University of Michigan School of Public Health. She wants to do kind of a community engagement project, and so she met with me, a while back. And I thought that the dioxane contamination and was a perfect fit, because I'd like to know, not necessarily, obviously I want to hear from this group, but people who maybe aren't as familiar with the contamination, how do they get their information, where are they getting their information, how would they like to be updated, like format, what level of information, what are they concerned about. So I wanted to present to this group 2 questions that she's starting to kind of get some feedback on, and what is the information that people would like to know about the dioxane plume and their lives influenced by it, and then how would they like to receive that information. And so certainly, since you guys are very active in this group and with this subject matter, I wanted to come to you and find out what that feedback might be so I can pass it on to her. Yes.
So I would, that's just off the top, I would suggest you contact NY and Ryan Stanton, who's done a lot of stories on the Gelman side. He's very interested in it. He lives in the city, has a lot of groundwater in the basement issues to deal with. So he's got a particular interest in this. And, he is more than willing to cover this story. And I think it'd be great if we engage with him and MLOT, unless he leaves or whatever. He's still there now. I think, he would be a great resource.
Yeah, he was on my list of people who certainly has done quite a bit on the topic as well.
And he gets to people who may not get it some other way, either online or in the newspaper delivered. So I think, that's a resource we should really take advantage of. And I'm glad he's interested, and he's done a lot of good stories, in my opinion.
So what stage is it at now? Just putting together some ideas.
Right, so I guess, and I see a couple other hands, I'll definitely get to you. At this stage, we're trying to get those questions, and then I was going to bring those back, the questions that you wanted to ask to the CARD group as well, for some feedback. But I think part of it is like, how would they like to receive that information? We're hoping a multidisciplinary approach. MLOT is certainly covering new news, but I guess we were also trying to think about like the historical piece, for people who may be moving to the area, to new homeowners. We are pretty well connected already with the realtor group. But just thinking about all of those different ways to connect with people. I know Washtenaw County Health Department has been partnering for the last several months with the City of Ann Arbor on their Quality Water Matters newsletter. We've gotten a lot of great response on that. So again, that's another avenue we use next door. Like, so again, those kind of ideas of how do we get that information out to the community.
Your presentation you did at the church, that 242, was, I had 2 or 3 people. One was a neighbor that knows a lot about the plume, say how great it was. And then another was just an Ann Arbor resident that was interested in, you know, knowing more, but I know it was more technical, but I think people liked knowing the history that you went over. And
Yeah, we put that on our website, so that's available
That
on
was
the
great.
Before and After page. So that that's available for everyone, because I think it was nested under the Board of Commissioner agenda items, and that's sometimes a little tricky to
Yeah,
navigate.
no, I heard a few good comments
Good,
about
thank
that.
you. Rita, did you have something?
Just a couple of comments. So I think, you know, I work with Simone, she's her office is a couple of doors down from mine. And she and I talked about this. One thing I encouraged her strongly is to come to a CARD meeting.
Unfortunately, her schedule hasn't aligned with that. I think she had gotten booked for a conference and she was out of town for the June meeting. But
She's not here today either.
no, she's at a conference today.
Yeah, and I
She was
think you
scheduled
could
for a
really
two-day
strongly
conference.
encourage
Yeah.
that. I think I detected a little resistance. I also suggested that she come, you know, stop by the table at the Green Fair, that she might get some ideas about community engagement by just sort of hanging out at the table. Everything I suggested to her, she said no to.
Yeah,
which
she
I
did
thought-
attend the community, or the listening session, I think, with Katie Scott.
Yeah,
a
she
couple
did do that,
weeks
right.
ago. Well,
So I just would like to encourage her to
And I
to
think
start
she was
her
also
community
again,
engagement with
Board
us.
of Commissioner presentation.
So
Yeah.
I've given her that message, and I think if she got it from you, it might be helpful
I've
too.
also given it to
Well,
her.
she should contact Roger.
Her schedule hasn't allowed.
Well,
Because she did want to
Yeah.
present this personally, but unfortunately she had, you know,
I think,
the meetings aren't always
So-
easy for everyone to make.
I think the outline of what the questions are and some of the ideas, as that is in a document of some sort, share it with CARD core group, all the people that come to meetings. We don't want to share with the wider group of people that never come to meetings, but we could share with the CARD core group.
We do want to reach a wide group though, so that's.
Well, then you can share it later, but in terms of asking, you know, what kind of questions should be asked, and things like that, you can do that as a second stage, but you start with CARD core and get the initial feedback from the people who are actually involved and come to meetings. I think it's more important. I'm asked to speak at Realtor groups and service groups, Rotary and Kiwanis. And it would really help if we had a consistent message from all the entities. We have some people here that are doing projects with the news guys and some video people that are interested in doing short stories on this. And I don't want it to just be kind of hit or miss. I want it to be some structure to it. So I think we almost need like a subcommittee to deal with this, to, you know, keep it so that it's not completely disjointed, so everything kind of fits together and without a whole lot of duplication and wasted effort, I would say.
Yeah.
We have a lot of history in SRSW, but the recent history hasn't been updated as much because I'm now chair of CARD. So we need to use what we have and extend it.
So yeah, I did finish, thanks. So I don't want to I don't want to leave it hanging out as a negative on Simone Charles. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us. She has this as part of her job responsibility to have some kind of a project. I think it offers a tremendous opportunity. And so I think that maybe my comment at first, it may come out a little more negative than I don't want to leave that impression. But I think I'm also a little bit confused about what she wants and or is happening, and like what information, you know, are we talking about communicating what's desired? Who's going to decide that? What's our audience? I just heard Jenny say, you know, as broad as possible. So, you know, I think all those things need to be defined. Who are the stakeholders? Are we talking about citizens, residents? Are we talking about regulators? These are all different stakeholders.
Right, so I think what we were looking at is for the community engagement, and this is where I was trying to define the project scope a little bit, was to try and say, you know, who is in our community? And again, it would primarily be the residents that are in the Plume area, maybe not necessarily the Plume itself, but all of Washtenaw County, right? Just making sure that they're kind of aware of contamination, how it may or may not impact them, what's been done, the history of the site, in all of the different ways that it could impact them. So again, I would look at this as, and then how do they want that information? Is it something that they read the paper and that's satisfactory? Is it something where they want to get you know, they watch the card videos online? Is it something where they want something pushed out to them in a newsletter format? And what is that? Or we posting on Nextdoor when there's new updates available? You know, what does that look like? I don't know what people are, you know, it's trying to get that feedback back from the community as well, as a group.
Right, that's how I
Larger than
understood it,
this.
that she wanted to actually reach out to the community and kind of do some kind of a sampling.
Right.
And survey, and of
Yeah.
course, the design of that is going to be the most critical, and I don't know what kind of guidance we can give except for objectives, because I don't think we're going to design this.
Right, yeah,
The
so
study
it's
of the
thinking about,
strategy.
you know, knowing kind of the subject matter
Okay.
experts saying, you know, what do we think people want to know, or what have we heard from our community?
Yeah.
And, you know, sitting at the table at Green Fair.
So right now, it's just a survey that she's gonna do on her, using her budget or whatever. It's not gonna require any of the county's special operations budget or anything.
Well, it would just be the collaboration, so staff time and resources are certainly involved in that.
Because one of the things I've been talking about with the people that have approached me to do history is that I want it to be sustainable. I don't want these one-off histories that we have to try to incorporate later that's not planned for. Like, you know, the Seas did this galaxy thing, and that was fine. But, you know, it's now a little bit out of date, and the structure didn't continue on forever, like dioxane does. So we have to meet dioxane's timescale on this. So I'm talking to the news guys here who want to do short videos. I say, you know, they got to be in segments that we can replace as we get new information, get updated, have some kind of structure to do that. So that's just where I'm coming from on this. And I think it's a great idea to get more people involved. What does it take to bring somebody up to date? I'm thinking about staff people too. You know, all the different staff people involved, they have to make decisions on this. How do they get up to date?
Yeah, that's what I was.
You know, it's got to be a tremendous problem. Who's the most recent staff person? I'm looking at people that said they just took a job. You know, how do you get up to date on this? You know, there's no one resource to go to. You have to kind of do what
And
homeowners do, and
the newly elected officials, too.
elected officials, for sure, you know. So what I have typically done is sit down for 4 hours when a new person comes on board, like I did with Dan, and like I did with a little bit with Kevin, I think, and, you know, try to bring them up to date on what I know, some key things that I know about, but how do you pass along, how do we effectively bring people up to date before they make a bad decision?
Right.
That's really what it amounts to. And I don't know what happens on the lawyer side. You know, how do they?
We don't either.
You don't either.
You know, because it's good that you've been coming to meetings, so you're at least getting some of this. But there was a period of time when we saw a lawyer once a year. That was pretty impressive. But they ended up making a lot of the decisions in secret. And the more transparency we have on this, the better the outcome is what my evidence has shown. So I think this is all good. I think we need to make it an ongoing issue. You know, maybe not just survey the public, but survey new employees and new council people and you know, different staff positions, and say, what is it that you know now that you should have known when you first started, when you were being oriented? I think that kind of survey would be very useful, because that impacts the actual decision maker.
Right,
They're
so
the
that's
key
outside the
people.
scope of this conversation that I'm doing with Simone,
Right.
but certainly an important one.
But like, for you, how long have you been involved with the dioxane?
7 years?
How many?
Well, 7 under this role, I mean, I've been with the county for about 19.
19.
So tangentially,
But this, when you
7 years
first,
with this role.
for this role, it's been how many years?
7?
7 years. So can you recall what it was like to get up to speed?
Yeah, I mean, I was obviously aware of it and involved tangentially during the other 12 years of my.
Yeah, and typically with staff people and council people and other elected officials, they're going to be looking at it from my bailiwick. Okay, this is what I need to know about. And then beyond that, how you work together with other entities to help bring about a real solution. That's another issue, how to broaden the view, even though it's not your job to worry about some of these things. To make those connections so that you know who to go to in these other entities to get information, like where are the wells? You know, things like that we really need to hammer out here as CARD to help everybody work together on this. So that's my spiel on that.
So I would just make another suggestion. U of M is now attending these meetings, or representatives are attending. But I think U of M has a great opportunity to disseminate information and to lend some expertise. So reaching out to U of M administration, I think would be great.
Do you have a contact?
Pardon me?
Do you have a contact for me?
Solicitor?
Well, we have some people reaching out to the regions, and the next time I see Mark.
I'm just saying that we need, U of M could be more involved in this. I mean, they have a great stake in drinking water in Ann Arbor and the county. But I think they have a lot of resources, and I think it's good to reach out to them. We could ask for, contact the individuals who are here now as to what they could do that would help the county get information out and provide some expertise potentially. So just keep them in mind as well, I think.
Well, I'd encourage everybody to do what I've been doing for the last couple of years, and that is to encourage the university to be involved at the highest level. Now that Chuck Gelman has passed away and the money for the risk assessment center is gone, it's okay to work on this at the department level. In fact, they should be working interdisciplinary on this because there are troves of case studies and dissertation just waiting on this site because it's going to be many, many decades. We should be the leader in how to clean up sites like this and learn from the dioxane site that we already have 30 years of pretty good information on to know how to deal with all these PFAS and other type sites with these forever chemicals. And we've got a world-class university right here. We shouldn't have to be running off to Virginia Tech or someplace else to solve these kind of problems. So that's the message I've been saying, and the rationale for it is Hill Auditorium. And there's a lot of blank looks here. Hill Auditorium is a major feature of university campus. It was given, the money for it was given by a guy named Hill, who was a lumberman from Saginaw.
Arthur Hill.
Yeah.
That's my high school. We were the
Arthur Hill, that's right. It's a high school named after him.
Yeah.
And so he thought enough of the university, being a graduate, that he would give the money for Hill Auditorium. He also gave a plot of land west of town so the university could have a demonstration for us to how to do sustainable forestry. And that, of course, is why Saginaw Forest is named Saginaw Forest. And while Hill Auditorium has been fallen into a little disrepair, and the university rallied and got it refurbished and a jewel of a building, they haven't done the same with Saginaw Forest. So Old Man Hill is spinning in his grave because there's dioxane permeating through Saginaw Forest. And so that's an argument. The other thing is, of course, the more we know about this, the less uncertainty is. So that all these out-of-state students who are reading about dioxane in Ann Arbor, that it's going to be a Superfund site. It's already a Superfund site because of the size of it. They at least know that people are doing their due diligence at all levels to fix the problem and contain exposures. So we have no more no more hits of dioxane on any more water supplies. We've already failed that twice within this last several months. 2 new hits on people's water supplies. So that goal has not been met. That doesn't mean we shouldn't continue for that as a goal. No more contaminated water supplies. So that's the argument you can use with all the university official people that we talked to.
Part of that history, Roger, is that the original industry responsible for the pollution was in part a university spin-off. And when the pollution was discovered by a graduate student in the lake.
Another U of M
Saginaw
person
Forest.
discovered what
And
other
at
U of
that
M
point-
people caused.
At that point, people on the board of Gelman were well connected to the university. I was dean of the School of Natural Resources, was responsible for Saginaw Forest and the students living in that little building down there.
The caretakers.
And I was told from the very top, you can take care of those people, but you don't do any more with this, okay? And that was when those surface ponds were overflowing and the movement was being toward the EPA and authorizing the well injection. So the university has an ambivalent history in relation to all this, including the founding of Saginaw Forest.
Right. Thanks for that update. Anything more you can add to that, to the history, would be appreciated. And that's another thing that, kind of an ongoing thing that, Jim's not here today, but, or you are here. There he is. So Jim is, I've delegated to him to kind of keep track of the list and arrange interviews for people that used to work at Gelman or had some other prior knowledge in other positions with the university or with local governments like you have, so we can document some of that history of how we got to this point. You know, why wasn't this fixed earlier? And those kind of stories are key. And just like any other problems in this country, if we confront them and say that happened before, but I'm not gonna do that anymore, I think that's important. So if you, as you talk to other people, neighbors, we were walking down the neighborhood, and the neighbor mother was there, and she said, I used to work at Gelman. So she's another one that I gotta get the name for. We're finding out backstories that really help us understand what's going on now. And that could be part of the history that we have.
So Kirsten, anything else?
Okay, I'm gonna go through mine real quick here. We've got the action items, which I put in Google Doc. If I can get to it. Can somebody at the county speed up the internet here? All right, so here's the action items from last month. This decision on the Superfund designation, I don't think there's any update to that other than something's going to be done by September 12th by the joint county working session.
That's correct. There is a joint county working session being called.
But there's no date for that yet.
Time or place, no location or?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, they're trying to find a place, or we're reaching out to schools and wherever. It's kind of a big table.
It's kind of coming up.
Oh, yeah. I talked with Jason about it on Sunday, so.
All right, so it'd be nice if we can have some update and then early enough to plan for it. Because it sounds like it's going to happen just after the next CARD meeting.
Yes.
So if we have some update before then. Shanna, you've
Yes, Yeah, the workshop, setting a date is in process. I sent out a doodle poll to the CARD core group. If anybody else would, like to, I'll send out an announcement to the whole CARD list of when the date is. This is to learn how to do Google Earth mashups with Roger Rayle. It's a 1-hour session. It's going to be at the library, but I was just picking the date based on when most people could come.
How
So
many
that's in
people
process.
responded so far?
Yeah, about 7 people have responded so far.
So if we get over like 12 or something like that, then we have to
Then
do
we'll
another
do
day.
2, yeah, but.
Jack, it's not here today, right?
He's here.
Oh, there's Jack. No, I can't see down the road here. That's the problem. So, you saw the email. Jack has voided this, and then I think didn't copy Jeff, so Jeff also asked Howard about it.
Yeah, so
And Howard responded.
he has responded, and, you know.
And he said he's
Might be a
received
fee.
it and city clerk to process a FOIA request. If the effort to assemble the data as existing format is estimated to take more than an hour, there will be a fee required. So do we want to take a different collection here to pay for this?
No, what we'd rather do is bring a resolution to waive that fee in the public interest.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, great.
And all we're trying to do here is get the data
Is that
that
accurate?
the company provides to the city as a result of their 2006 settlement when the city tried to intervene in the court case. There was an agreement that the company would provide the city with certain sampling data. And what we don't know is that the same sampling data that we get through the DQ. Brian, do you know?
No.
Of course, nobody knows here. And of course, out of that, we discovered that the sampling point for bromate, the bromate sampling that was supposed to take place right here at the mouth of Honey Creek, and it spells it right out on the map in the document, in the settlement document. In fact, it's been sampled down here, somewhere in the river. So if it was supposed to be sampling bromate coming out of Honey Creek, it got diluted a whole lot before it gets down here. So the DQ, or the EGLE now has corrected that for the split sampling they do on dioxane to sample right here, very close to the mouth for dioxane, but the company, as far as we know, is going to be still sampling bromate down here in the river.
As that
We need
request
to change
moves
it.
forward, should I copy you on it also, Shannon?
That would be great,
Okay,
thanks.
that way you can decide who gets to see it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which I think is a violation of the agreement, when they're sampling in the river rather than where they said they're going to be sampling.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what's in there.
And what's important about bromate? Carcinogen? It's already,
What's in the data?
it's already in the drinking water, and the city's having trouble maintaining a low level, and now we got Gelman adding to the mix, so that makes it even harder.
Go back to the action items. I gotta skip through this real quick here. So I sent information on the city-county agreement to Patty.
Yep.
Still here, so.
Yep.
And again, that overlaps with the FOIA request. Public comment period, already talked about that. Surface water sample in June, July. Dan, you've already covered this. I don't know what this asked 242 Church for any additional information. Well, this was about, I think, the sampling on their site.
Yeah. At the last CARD meeting, people were asking whether the church has done any sampling.
And you were going to ask them or something?
Yeah, I did. And they sent me what they've done.
And is it basically the BEA, the baseline environmental
Well,
analysis?
that was part of it. He sent the DDCC document that is already out there. But he also sent updates. They basically have done, what other sampling they've done is they've done a site characterization assessment in 2016 where they did some soil sampling and some results. They did a pre-renovation asbestos containing material survey and mold assessment.
So this is all like inside the building?
Well, this is outside the building.
Oh, outside too.
There's a site assessment. the mold stuff and asbestos.
So is that in the administrative
They did an
record?
abatement report of abating whatever
Yeah,
they
you don't
found.
have to list them all, but is that all?
And
gonna be-
limited lead, I'm gonna say it right here, limited lead-based paint testing. So, the only thing related, not related to the environment around their building would be the site assessment, site characterization assessment, and they did 15 or 16 soil points and sampled shallow soil and didn't find anything, except some PNAs in the parking lot where asphalt was.
So is this something that we have in the administrative record?
I'm gonna put it in the administrative record. I don't think.
You're gonna share it with the link?
Yeah. I literally just got these last week.
Okay. And then the Elm Creek drain sampling report, we already.
Yeah, that's coming in.
You already talked about that. And here's the, just the ongoing thing that we should use method 522 for sampling around the outside of anywhere where it's close to people's wells. There's also the dimethyl formamide sampling that Dan McNell requested. There was one sample taken back in 1987, and it was 100,000 parts per billion, and it hasn't been sampled since. And yet that is more miscible than dioxane. Perhaps travels just as fast, if not faster. And it'd be nice to know, is there any of that still left on the site? The half-life is supposed to be shorter, but even in 1987, there was 100,000 of it, so if the half-life was shorter, then there was probably more of it used. Now, my question is, did they continue using that after they stopped using dioxane? Was that a substitute for dioxane in making their filters? Does anybody here know that? Is that possible, that they continue to use dimethyl formamide to make the holes in the filters like they're using dioxane? And if so, how much longer might it be used? Does anybody know that? There's 100,000 parts per billion. After they quit using dioxane.
Where was that sample taken?
Where?
Where is that?
I think it was near Pond 1 or 2 or something like that. Yeah, I can share that later. So future near surface ground, we already talked about that earlier, so I can skip over that. I go back to the agenda. New Google Earth features. I've restructured Google Earth, and those of you who come to the Google Earth training will see this new structure. But basically, what it is, I've added, turn off these other things that were turned on. So now if you click on a well, you see the normal graph or list of parts per billion, but you also see a link or two at the bottom. If you click on that link, it brings up the well log. So you don't have to go looking through your folder for it. It's right there. So all the wells that have well logs now have that. I've also done that with all the cross sections. So all of these cross sections that the company has done over the years, if you zoom in on it, and click on one of the cross sections, it'll bring up a little balloon. It'll also show you which cross section it is on the list. And it also has a link. So you can see what the cross section looked like at that point. Oh, I happened to, this was purely accidental. This happens to be one where they're missing half of the cross section. It's somewhere in somebody's files, but we didn't get it in the note. So that's another trove of information for all decision makers, anybody that's looking at cross-section, comparing one to the other. That's a tool now that you can use. Some other Google features I have. I tried to pull together all of the locations that we don't have, that aren't part of the database. The city has some supply wells down near airport, I put that in. The deep injection well location, I put that in. There were some old monitoring locations that I pulled from maps that weren't anywhere else. Some soils information that wasn't anywhere else. And then the Gelman supply wells, which were plugged before they were really used as monitoring. And then here, I pulled together all of the locations where we're missing data. So a lot of these show up on cross-section diagrams that the company provided, and yet the information to make them show up in the cross-sections is not in the database. It's not in the company's database, it's not in the DQ database, and it's only approximately in my database that I used to do. So all these locations here should have been included all along. And there's another whole set, of course, that's from the 1995 database that's been either ignored or deprecated. So these are all the other locations. And the yellow ones are where there were detectable parts per billion, and the white are non-detected at that time. I don't want this information to be permanently lost, because when the cleanup is finally done, and nature takes back over, the people around then are going to want to know what was it like, what was going on at different levels of the aquifers back in the early days. Here's Kevin's borehole log data, which is basically all the sample locations that he could find at the time. Unfortunately, we still don't have the, we got all this information here, but we don't have the name of the well that it's associated with because of the way that Rockworks exports their data. So I'd like to get that fixed. Here are locations where there's missing XY locations, like where are the wells? So there's a lot of information that we're pulling together, but we could use some help doing that. That's all I want to say about that. University of Michigan School of Information Contact, they have set out a request for any nonprofits that want to have help pulling together their data and working on long-term solutions. I met with them, or talked with them for half an hour. It seems like this might be too big of a project for them until we can get the overall university support on this. But I thought the School of Information would be a natural point to start because it's information. That's their business. These students that could be using this as a study site forever, building from one semester to the next on what was done before, and then work with all the other departments that are doing specific studies of, you know, the political side of this, the governmental side, the dioxane remediation side. I thought the School of Information would be a perfect hub to help with this, and again, tie in with the history and using the Ann Arbor News history, all that scanning and all the other news sites that we pulled together. Wayne State approached me. There was a student that wanted to do a study on this, so I haven't heard back from that.
Hi.
And then finally, the...
Roger.
Hi.
Oh, you're here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, introduce yourself, because I think you came in late.
I did come in late, sorry about that, but thanks for adding me to your agenda. So, hi everyone, my name is Colleen Lynn, I'm from Wayne State University. I'm a PhD student in anthropology and urban sustainability, and I'm working on an interdisciplinary research group on water contamination in Southeast Michigan. And so my role as a social scientist is to understand how communities and societies are responding to these drinking water contamination threats, especially from invisible contaminants like dioxane and PFAS. So I plan on continuing to attend CARD meetings as long as I'm able and welcome, and I would look forward to connecting with any one of you about your experiences, about either how you've been affected at home or how you've been working on this issue in your professional careers.
Perfect. Yes.
Thank you.
Send me your outlines and
Yeah.
syllabus and all that kind of stuff.
Definitely, well,
And
thank you.
who else came in afterward? Stand up and introduce yourself if you came in after the introductions.
My name is James Demore, and thankfully I do not live in the Gelman plume. I live in the southeast side of Ann Arbor. I helped get the Sierra Club Huron Valley Group involved in petitioning the plume to be declared a Superfund site by the EPA.
Okay, good. Somebody else came in late back there?
Sue
Katie,
came
were
in
you
late.
in?
She went.
Yeah, that's the only other
Oh,
one.
Kathy Bristol, I'm on City Council Second Board.
And that's it for that. All right, preparation for September 12th EPA action, again, that's already covered. And
So,
Jill's gonna
Roger,
give us
may I?
an update on that. Huh?
So, the parties will be going in front of the judge, or meet with the judge on August 9th to discuss the progress or lack thereof on the consent agreement.
Okay.
That's all I can say about that. While sitting here, I received an email from staff saying that we have a special session on the Gelman plume on Monday, August 12th, where we'll go into closed session, so you won't learn anything about what we talk about there either. But certainly this is all in anticipation of bringing us up to date before we have the September 12th meeting, just so you know what the city's doing.
Thanks.
Did they notify you where that's gonna be?
No, but at Monday's meeting, we will have that discussion.
Oh, and the commissioner was here, I'm sorry, I forgot her name, was that Dana Wilkinson?
Sushin.
Yeah, she had to leave, but she left a note related to this. She said, "The County Board of Commissioners will be going into closed session to hear an update from our attorney on Gelman on Wednesday. We don't plan to hold a public discussion on Wednesday." So it sounds like similar to what the city's doing. The county is also doing the same thing, having a closed session in preparation for September 12th.
And I heard Councilwoman Griswold last night at the city council meeting say that she wants a resolution put on Ann Arbor's city council the Monday after the 12th meeting to,
Jeff and I are working on
Yeah.
that because we don't want any delay coming out of the meeting on the 12th.
Right.
And we will share that information with the other governmental entities.
thank you.
Yeah. It's really important what you guys are doing to keep this moving. All right, well, that's all I have. Any other comments before we start packing up? Bryce, you got anything?
No, sir.
Yeah.
So Dan Bicknell sent an email, I don't know if you saw it, Roger.
Yeah, I did.
Did you want to bring that up?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Dan is out of town, and he has a request that he would like EGLE to indicate of any Michigan contaminated sites, allowed a financial viable polluter who caused the release of contamination to have an off-site contamination remedy with the remediation criterion above the drinking water criterion. And he's requesting that we get a response within 2 weeks regarding that. I think his implication is that Gelman is being allowed to do that, and has that happened anywhere else in the state? The other issue he brought up is that there's been some debate as to whether an EPA CERCLA designation would override the state of Michigan's CJ consent judgment. He's noted that at the stakeholder meeting with Debbie Dingle, Michael Burkhoff, who is an EPA Superfund manager, confirmed that CERCLA administrative order will replace the state of the consent judgment. So,
So Vince, can you have Dan forward that request to EGLE and rest of CARD Corps?
yeah, well, I'm just putting
He needs
that
to
out.
submit it as a FOIA request.
So I think there's some debate as to whether CERCLA would override the CJ. It seems like Michael Burkhoff felt it would, but there is some debate as to whether that would be the case or not.
The simple answer is no, it would not.
Your opinion is that it
Yes,
would not?
It would not. In and of itself, listing as an MPL site would not void the consent judgment. The consent judgment exists in Michigan courts, and Michigan courts would have to take some action. You know, the action would have to be there to, make the consent judgment go away, for simple terms.
So the federal agency, EPA, would not have the ability to
Simply listing would not change the status of the existence of consent judgment.
But it could be done.
It could be done, yes, but it will not be
The
done.
same parties
by-
that requested the EPA intervention can request.
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate on how to. More likely, Gelman could go to the state court judge and say, the EPA is now involved, you should just step back and see what happens.
But it's not automatic.
No.
That's what you're saying. Okay, well, so it's still up in the air.
Well, but there is a
I
solution.
saw Dan's, I watched the video of the last card meeting where Dan made that statement.
Yeah, so, it seems like Michael Burkhoff did indicate that CERCLA would override state.
Well, but the bottom line is, the consent judgment can go away. It must go away because it's so flawed. We're sitting here talking about things that we talked about 5, 10 years ago. All right, anybody else? Because I got to pack up.
Yeah. A quick housekeeping announcement. Future evening meetings are going to be at Scioto Township Hall, and the future quarterly meetings will be in this room, just as a general rule for everybody to know. Thank you.
And if you, our building's getting remodeled.
Okay.
And so we'll update you once we know more about that. But we will no longer have access to the lower level of this building. It'll be dispatch.
So where in the Scioto Township Hall do they meet?
It's going to be in the big room.
The bigger conference room? Yeah.
Probably, okay.
Wait, but you said something about here for quarterly?
Yes. Until
In this
the
room?
renovation starts.
So it'll be down here?
Down here, yeah, right, not in the upper conference room.
Next one's November.
Right, okay, good to know.
If you didn't already sign in, please sign into the sign-up sheet up here and put your contact information.
Yeah, definitely sign in so that we can, if you haven't been here before, we want to add you to the CARD Corps list. And we keep an attendance of who was at meetings so that if we need to go back, we can show who's here.
Hold people accountable.
Yeah, basically. By the way, I've been doing my own notes. I got a pad that's this thick with notes, and I decided I better go through and document those. And if there's things on here that need to be done, and I could use some help doing some of these, so I'll be reaching out to people who want to help with the different stuff. All right, thanks everybody for coming. I'll see you next month.
Yeah.